Hey everybody, Peter Faciano here. Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. I wanted to take a few moments today and address some of the comments that were left on my previous video reviewing the Viltrox speed booster for the Canon mirrorless camera. If you haven't seen the video, I'll go ahead and link above, and if you want to go ahead and take a look at some of the problems that I was having, go ahead and do that. I wanted to address the comment dealing with the Sigma 18-35 f1.8. This lens is meant for APS-C sensors. And when you put the lens onto the speed booster, the image circle that's cast onto the APS-C sensor is smaller than what the lens was intended for. So I started thinking about this and I was wondering how that actually occurs. So the way that I figured it is, as the light's coming through this lens, it's going to shrink it a little bit and it's going to hit the sensor. And then when you put the speed booster on, as the image is passing through the Sigma into the Viltrox, it's actually reducing the image circle even more, and then that's what's causing the vignetting because it's not landing on the sensor the way that it's supposed to. So let me go ahead and show you what I mean. And if I'm right, let me know. And if I'm looking at this the wrong way, put some comments down below and let me know where my errors are, because I want to figure this out. So I'll go ahead and set this stuff aside. So what I came up with is I just cut a square of cardboard, and this is going to act as the sensor. The Sigma lens is going to basically cast an image directly onto the sensor. And I know this is not perfect, but I think you'll get the understanding. As the light comes through or the image comes through, the lenses that are in the Sigma are going to cast the image circle kind of like this onto the sensor. And then when you add the speed booster on there, there's other lenses that are going to reduce the size of the image circle again. So what you end up with is something like this. So as it reduces the image circle, it clips the edges off of the sensor, and that's where you end up getting the vignetting. At least this is how I'm thinking of it. I'm not exactly sure how the optics work in either of these lenses, but I think this makes sense to me. So that was the first comment that I wanted to address. The second thing, which is something that I completely forgot to mention, is the idea that the Viltrox will not work on EF-S lenses at all. So the booster has these little pins in here, and whenever you take a lens, an EF-S lens, to connect it to the actual booster itself, there's this little plastic ring around the lens that will not allow the electronics to connect. If you're gonna put this on here, it seems like it doesn't actually seat onto the booster to lock into place to make those connections on those pins. Now there are videos out there that show you how to cut this ring off or hack this ring off, but I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to show you that the EF-S lenses do not work on the Viltrox. They don't click into place, so that does not work. Okay, the third thing that I wanted to talk about was the actual fit of the Viltrox onto the M50. And from my experience, anytime I connected this to the camera, it's actually a pretty solid connection. So I always hate opening this up because the sensor is exposed, but I'll do it. So when you open the Viltrox up, and then the camera here, it clicks in place, and I'm just going to go ahead and wiggle this back and forth. I mean, it does rock back and forth, but it's a pretty good secure fit. And then when you go ahead and connect a lens to it, that clicks into place. That's a pretty good connection as well. Now let's go ahead and compare the connection of this booster to the Canon mount. This is the Canon mount. That is not a booster. And rocking it back and forth, I don't really see much difference between the Canon and the Viltrox, so that's pretty good. The last thing I wanted to talk about was the idea that using the speed booster on this camera would cause battery drain. And the way that the manual is talking about this is it's suggesting that you take the booster, put it onto the lens, and then put the lens onto the camera. I did that. I left it overnight. No battery drain. And then I thought maybe people were putting it on in the wrong order. So I wanted to test that to see if the order actually mattered. And I did this a couple of times with the two different lenses that I have that will mount on here. So I ended up putting the booster on the camera and then attaching the Sigma onto here. And then I left it like this overnight, and I came back and the battery was fine. I had absolutely no drain on it at all. Did the same thing. I took the Sigma off, kept the booster on there, put the 50mm on there, left it overnight, no battery drain. So no matter what order I put any of these lenses onto the booster, it didn't make a difference. I never had any battery drain. So I don't know if it's just my booster and I just got lucky, or if Viltrox actually figured out that problem. Okay, everybody, that's all I have for today. I just wanted to address those few issues. I hope you got some value out of this. If you did and you're new here, why don't you go ahead and consider subscribing, like the video, and maybe share it with somebody that might find interest in this. And like always, I'll see you next time.